happens when early stage founders realise that their go-to market strategy isn't broken because of their product, but because of their playbook? Well, in this episode of Tech Talks Daily, I'm joined by Richard Lowry, founder of Springboard IQ, and he's rethinking how startups build momentum. And he will explain today why technical founders often misfire when hiring sales talent, and how outdated advice can quietly sink your launch. But I want to learn more about his 7-day go-to-market sprint, how it replaces guesswork with insight from active operators that are still in the trenches. And I also want to talk about the power of human-led activation in an AI-saturated world, and how connection could be the new conversion, and why great stories, sometimes even ones that start in soup kitchens, can do far more for growth than any automated campaign you might rustle up on ChatGPT or any AI assistant of your choice. But enough scene setting from me. I'm a big fan of Richard, a great guy, and he's someone that has listened to the podcast as well, so he's a officially friend of the show. So enough from me. Let's get Richard onto the podcast now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, thanks, Neil. It's great to join you. So I'm Richie Lowry. I founded Springboard IQ at the beginning of 2025, so coming up to about a year now. And before that, I would have spent about 10 years in tech sales. So I've kind of seen firsthand, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I guess just even before that, then I had my first exposure to sort of setting up my own business, where I had a sports supplement business that I set up after college when I was trying to sort of figure out what my next move was going to be. So I went into that, and then my parents eventually got they were insisting on, trying to get into a more sort of organized career, where a bit more of I don't know what the best way to describe it would be, but they sort of thought I could learn from getting into an organization and learning from, not just teaching myself, I guess. Yeah, and that's a little about me, and that's how we got here today, I guess.
Awesome. And I love the work that you're doing here. It's so important. And I wrote an article recently about the importance of live events, especially in the world of AI, where we're all hiding behind phones and screens, etc. And I think getting out there, especially as startup founders, and getting your message out there is so important. But I think many early stage startups still struggle to find their product market fit and even scale their go-to-market motion. So as someone that's talking with so many different founders around the world, what are the most common mistakes that you're seeing founders making when it comes to a go-to-market strategy?
Yeah, so I think to narrow it down to two, I'd say the first, what I'd see most often would be, it's when a startup's looking to hire someone, and the nature of it is that if you're a startup and you're looking to go to market, you don't have the pick of the bunch per se. You can't go and get someone who's got 5-10 years experience leading a sales or within an established company. You kind of have to go, and the good example I'd use is, you're not Pep Guardiola standing on the sideline looking at your a training pitch with these superstars, proven players who've got all the years, who've gone through all the academies, gone through the first teams, and they're at their pinnacle. You have to try and identify. You're at a Sunday league game trying to identify an up and coming player who could be great, and that's a hard role for a startup founder to do, especially when a lot of the founders we'd speak with, maybe technical founders, so they're great at developing a product, but when it comes to the sales aspect, they just may not have that exposure to seeing what good looks like in terms of who's got that promise, or who's the best person to come in and take their company to the next level. So hiring is definitely one of the areas. And the second I'd say would be just on who you're listening to. So we speak to, in Ireland, there's quite a large there's quite a large amount of accelerator programs, and some of them are really good and some are really important. But there is often there's scenarios where you'll have someone get aligned to a mentor or an advisor that just may have been out of the game for quite a while, and they just haven't been selling or active in the industry in 5 to 10 years. And unfortunately, everything's changed. So as you know yourself, everything has changed. Over the last 18 months, things have changed so much that you need to be careful who you're taking that advice from. So what I always say is, if you were given £1 million tomorrow in funding, would you use that? Would you include that same advisor in your advisory board? It's just one way to audit the people, just to make sure that you have, because sometimes you need to take them on board because it's part of the accelerator program, but just maybe don't use them as the only source of information. Have someone else included as well.
Yeah, completely agree with you. And I think most startups, especially if they're bootstrapped, they don't need or cannot afford a full-time head of sales, but they do need that kind of expert guidance when making big picture sales decisions. And as a result, my understanding is Springboard HQ, you've built this model that crowdsources ideas from experienced operators. But tell me more about this, the story behind it, and how this approach differs from, I don't know, let's say traditional consulting or accelerator programs, for example.
Yeah, so I guess where, just to answer the last bit, where we differ would be with consultants. You tend to have people who've again, goes back to my previous point, where they may not be active in the industry right now, so their insight just might be a bit out of date, but also they're kind of more focused on billable hours and different motivating factors. Whereas at Springboard IQ, what we're looking to do is we're looking to bring together some people who are active in the industry now. So for any typical client, I'll bring 6 people on board and we'll brainstorm, and the synergy you get from having people in a room who've all got something to add to the conversation, it really is brilliant. Like, some of the ideas that we come up with for companies can be, you wouldn't even dream of it, and the impact you can see them having, because all those people are currently working in companies at the moment. They're facing the same problems. They're facing the same issues that everyone is when they're trying to connect with an audience that's becoming less and less engaged. You've got these people who are actively troubleshooting their own problems within their own jobs. So they come together, and it's a great way to share knowledge, but also it can kind of, there's a sort of energy that's created, and it's great. So that's one of the biggest benefits, is that you've got everyone pulling in that one same direction. And that's just to get a solution for this one company, and then we move on to the next one. So there's no worry about bias or politics coming into play, or bureaucracy, any of that. That just doesn't come in. It's just one focus, one goal, and having great minds coming together is just, that's an added bonus.
And I suspect that every founder you speak to are going to be paying very close attention to the ROI, measuring value that you can help provide. So when I was doing a little research on you, your go-to-market blueprint is designed to help companies rethink strategy. And here's the bit that stood out to me: in just 7 days. So talk me through that. What happens during that week, and how do you get those actionable insights so quickly?
Yeah. So what will happen is, in any typical engagement, what will happen is I'll speak with the client, and I'll engage with them, and I'll figure out a lot of the sort of behind the scenes, what they're currently doing, what their target audience, what they're talking about, what any milestones that they have in place. A lot of them may have, goals or objectives they need to hit for funding or for current investors. And I'll put together a brief, and then the 7 day that you're referring to will be when I'm engaging with our panel, so our network. So I'll have 6 people brought together for a brainstorming session, and we generally meet on a Tuesday and a Thursday. And I'll come in and I'll pitch the brief to them. We'll have an immediate sort of back and forth discussion about it. If anyone's got some relevant contributions, or just a lot of these have dealt with similar problems before. But then what we'll do is we'll go away and come back on the Thursday, and we'll follow up with that, and we'll just try and put together the best possible go-to-market for that company. So each one's customized for a specific client. So the 7 days refers to the engagement of our expert panel. And then afterwards, I'll work with the client to put together an implementation sort of roadmap. So all in all, you could, if I was to speak with you this week, we could have, by Friday week, you'd have a sort of ironclad go-to-market strategy that's been sort of crowdsourced from people who are active in the market right now. So that's what the 7 days refers to, I guess. Does that answer?
Yeah, 100%. And I think as well, I think many startups rely on their founders or maybe a sales leader to handle that GTM all on their own in a silo almost. So why is this operator-led, more collective approach often more effective at this stage of growth? What kind of results are you seeing here?
Yeah, it's a good question. So what we tend to see is I'm a strong believer that a founder can be the best possible salesperson for their company, but I think that comes at a certain it's the customer facing part. So say for example you have a startup and you're looking to engage with several customers each week. I don't think they're the best person to be doing 90% of the work, but the 10% where they're maybe doing the demo, or because there's nothing better than getting a demonstration off the founder or the person who's developed a product, and then you can get, it's radiant. The belief, the confidence, the enthusiasm is so contagious, and it's really, really powerful. So I think for a founder to be part of the sales process is actually important at the beginning. But often if you're looking to scale a team out, or even just to sort of, go to market in your strongest possible way, I don't think you can be doing everything, because you're just diluting the effort, and keep your energy for where it's most important, and that's the customer facing part. So you need this other things in play where you need someone to be doing the sort of the outreach, the engagement, the follow-ups, the determining who's the right personas to reach out to, and all the messaging and all those different things. So a lot of times founders will try and do everything, and it just means that, what's the phrase? The jack of all trades, master of none. Whereas just use yourself. I think it's the power of law. Where's your biggest impact? And that's usually in the demonstration, customer facing part. So that's where but then it also allows you to sort of set the right foundations for when you are looking to grow a team out. If you've been doing everything and then suddenly you try to add 2 or 3 people to your team, it can just get very messy very quickly, because you just don't have those foundations in place, and it's very hard to build on top of that. Neil, I'll give you a funny story. You just remind me of one there. So I remember I was in a startup a few years ago, and I was the only salesperson over in Europe, and I was actually, everyone else was over in the west coast of America. So the time difference meant that if a call was, any time before 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock, I had to take it on my own. And it was my first week. And there was a call went into my calendar, and it was from Tesco, the CTO of Tesco. And this is my first week in the new job, and it was a productivity tool for engineers. And I remember joining the call thinking, okay, I'll just do a bit of discovery, find out what's the sort of pain points, and we can set up a follow-up call. But no, the CTO insists that he didn't have time for any follow-ups. He wanted a demo right here, right now. So that's the kind of an example of just where, without the right frameworks in place, that could have been a game changer for that company if they got Tesco engaged. And it was a brilliant tool, but just that's an example of where the framework wasn't right. They added more salespeople to the team, and it just was, it was a bit all over the place. So of course that call didn't last long, and there was no follow up, because I don't think I even knew what the product did properly, let alone was able to demonstrate it to someone of that, in that kind of role. Just an example, I guess. Just the best thing you can do is at the beginning of the journey is just to put the right foundations in. It means once you add those bricks on top of that, it's just sturdy, steady, and reliable.
What a great story. I absolutely love that. And when reading about you, another thing that stood out to me is Springboard IQ doesn't handle outreach, but instead just focuses on strategy and design. So why is that so important to you, to separate the planning from the execution, especially in early stage teams?
Yeah. So what we look to do is our USP is like where our real strength lies is it's just a caliber of people. And it's not myself. It's just, I'm more of a sort of, what would you call it? Like I'm the foreman of the situation, the project manager, where the strength that we have is actually the people that we're getting access to, who we're crowdsourcing from. And, they're all currently working in their own jobs. So just the bandwidth alone, we don't have that. If I'm to try to cover all those other bases, which the outreach and a lot of that can be done by junior reps, whether it's BDRs, or you can get these tools out there that'll do it, or there's agencies out there. But our strength is actually in just the ideas and the design of the strategy rather than implementation. And I just think if you try to do everything, you're diluting your offering. So that's the main role, the main reason.
And we will have founders listening all around the world. So I've got to ask, what kind of founders or indeed companies would benefit most from your model? And also, of course, when is the right time for them to seek help refining their go-to-market plan? Is there a few alarm bell moments, a few little telltale signs?
Yeah, so it's what we'll see now over the last few months is that some companies will hit a bit of a snag. They'll hit a wall, and they're noticing that their outreach isn't having the same impact. They're not creating as much pipeline as they need to, or they were. And that can be a good time to engage with us. We're best suited in a B2B sort of environment where, within a company who's gone to market and have market validation. So they have sold, but they've just hit a speed bump. And that's where we can come in, and it could be just a case of, it could be just trying to focus redirect that company, or it could be, let's think of a new way to like, I'm a big believer in if everyone's swimming downstream, you've got to find a way to swim upstream. It's the only way in the current climate where automation has made the environment or the landscape so noisy, and everyone's getting bombarded with emails, with outreach. And it's just so important to try to, so back to the point, the companies that are just have hit a bit of a wall in those, and that just they'll know they need something to change. We're great for that. We'll plug in and, come up with some ideas of where the best is, what's the next best step for your company. And then again, it can be that you might have had a lot of people will come to us after they've hired someone, and after 6 to 8 months, they've realized, it wasn't the right hire and they need to reset. That's another great time for us to come in, and we'll give you a framework or a spine that you can rely on, because people will come and go. It's the nature of any business. You'll have sales managers come in and they'll leave, or they won't be what you thought they might be. But if we can give you something that you can just keep in place, that no matter who comes in or who leaves or joins, they'll be able to rely on this. That's where our real value add is noticed.
And we are at that magical time of the year. We're weeks away from a new year when something kind of kicks in and people start thinking about new strategies, what they're going to achieve next year. So as we look ahead to that, how do you see crowdsourced expertise reshaping how startups go on to think about scaling next year, and also customer acquisition, market positioning over the next few years? There's so much going on here. There's going to be a lot of founders listening, thinking about all these things. How do you see this evolving?
Yeah, you know what, Neil, what I see happening and I've already seen a lot of it happen with clients we're dealing with, but there has become, if you look at stuff like LinkedIn or email or even Reddit, I was a big fan of Reddit up until recently, where there's a huge increase in, it's AI generated content or it's bot activity, and it's stuff like that. It's just becoming so noisy that you're losing a lot of eyeballs, and a lot of people are becoming disconnected from the usual places that people find their customers. So I'm seeing a huge increase in human-led activation. So what we do now is we'll try and find a bit of a hybrid model where we'll put together a go-to-market strategy, but we always look to try and include some human-led activation, which means it could be a networking event. It could be, we've taken on some where we'll do a watch along where we'll get some sports people. We did it for rugby there recently, where get 2 Irish internationals to come and join an event, and we'll try and bring as many of your ICP, as many of your potential clients into a room, and you're not stood there pitching to them. What you're doing is you're creating an environment where you can engage with these people, and then once those communication loops are open, you can then, follow on that the following week and try to sort of initiate a further conversation. But trying to get engagement now is a premium. And I'm just feeling that in the new year, it's going to be less and less online, because there's way too, I did some research there that when I was in the last job I started, there was 30 different go-to-market strategies available. That was just during the COVID times. Now there's 2,000 tools. All of those tools are making more and more noise for people who are trying to just decision makers, people who are in companies looking to, who are getting targeted by these, by salespeople. So you're not going to stand out if you're just another one of those people. So find a new way to stand out. And where I'm seeing a huge increase in that, in in-person engagement.
Yeah.
So that will be one of the main changes I'd see on the horizon.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm reading more and more about younger people disconnecting, putting their phone down. They've even got the phrase raw dogging for just going out there and not having any tech at all. And I think the importance of events and conferences face to face, this stuff matters more than ever, doesn't it?
It really does. And it's the quality as well of engagement. So there is some really good events out there, but you also have, we've had a few events in London and Dublin where when we started this out, we were trying to do some networking events, and you have to hit the right note. So it's all about getting the right audience there. So depending on who your target audience is, you need to create the right environment around that, because unfortunately you're going to any of the big cities, and if you have the wrong event, like I've had, you can have people who are you're just not getting the right target audience. So it's all about, I do feel like there's going to be a huge increase in that sort of that human factor, isn't there? Where people just need to like, even now you have working remotely is a huge thing. There's just that sort of human factor's gone. And I think that if you can kind of find a way to engage with people, it will definitely be a huge plus.
Yeah, and the Dublin has a great tech scene as well. You have the Dublin Tech Summit, don't you, as well?
Yeah,
which is always is that something you attend every year? Or?
Yeah, so I have done. And then we had the Web Summit here for a few years, and then there was a bit of a falling out there. So that's gone to Lisbon since. But there is quite a few events here, and there's some great accelerator programs here as well. Some really good ones there. You've got Dogpatch down the road from me, where you get some great startups that are coming out of that. And there's definitely a vibrant sort of scene, So it's definitely an exciting time. Like it's an interesting time as well, where I'm kind of curious where this is going to go over the next year or two. Not from my own perspective, but just with the way tech is going. Like I feel like it's harder and harder to trust what you see, So I think offline might be a thing where it's a bit more trustworthy. You don't know if it's a deep fake or if it's, coming from AI.
Yeah. Oh, man. And one of the things I love about you is you're working with so many different enterprises, startups, so many conversations on tech show floors and conferences, working with export stars even. So I've got to ask here, is there a funny or interesting story that has happened in your career that you are able to share? I'm sure there's more than a few that you can't, but any you can?
Yeah, I'll give you one, Neil, where now this happened a few years ago. And so I was working with, I had Sky, the TV network were one of my clients, and our company was remote. So I was working over out of Lisbon for a few weeks, and I was trying to break into to speak with more of the teams at Sky. And I just, like in any salesperson would relate to this, it's just, you're just not getting any traction whatsoever. So eventually when I was over in Lisbon, I said, look, that team was based out of Lisbon. It's a great chance to try to initiate a conversation. So eventually someone replied and he agreed to meet. And I was staying out in a place called Cascais on the kind of coast of outside Lisbon.
Yeah.
So he said, listen, I'm coming out that way at the end of the week. I'll come out to you, you pick a place. And where I was in an Airbnb, just about 15 minute walk outside of the main town. So I'm up there, and on my walk around every day, I was kind of seeing this one place was always busy, always had a queue outside. So I thought, okay, look, you have to trust. Sometimes it's hard to judge when I didn't speak any Portuguese. You don't really know the area that well. So I said, look, you got to trust with people. People vote with their feet. So it's obviously very popular. So anyway, I sent your man a pin on the Friday. He came over and we went in. I was already in there, so I had a table, and he joined me. I could see his face kind of dropped a tiny bit when he came in. But I went about the day, and bear in mind that, English wasn't his first language. Portuguese was non-existent for me. So we had a bit of a back and forth, and it seemed to be going pretty well. But the restaurant we were in was there's a strange atmosphere. And then the guy taking our order, there was no menu, there was no options. So eventually they just give you what you took what you were given. It comes to the end and I said, can I pay? And the waiter kind of waved me off. And then the guy who I was meeting was kind of saying, no, you don't pay. So I kind of thought he meant that he was taking the bill. I insisted. He goes, no, you don't pay. So that went on for back and forth for a bit. And as we walked out, I said, you shouldn't have done that. Let me at least get you a coffee. And he said, no, you do realize, and he points back at the place we just walked out of. And he said, that's a soup kitchen, whatever word he is. I'm looking at him thinking, odd. So it actually ended up randomly. It should have been a disaster that, I was ashamed of, but embarrassed about, but it ended up opening about 3 meetings booked the next week with different people within Sky because word had got around about this mad story. So it kind of just goes back to show that these human interactions, whether they're daft or funny or stupid, they are human and they actually do more for you than ones where you could put together, you could work with ChatGPT and put together a 20 paragraph essay about anything. It's not going to hit the same notes as a human interaction, no matter what way it goes,
Oh, I absolutely love that. My son always says to me, Dad, nobody had a great story from things going right. It's those happy accidents where things happen, isn't it?
Yeah.
So for anybody listening, we've talked a lot today about your go-to-market blueprint, the ignition plan, etc. Anyone just wanting to find out more about you, connect with you, or Springboard IQ, where should they go?
Yeah, so springboardiq.ai is our website. You get me on LinkedIn, Richie Lowry, and then on my email, richie@springboardiq.ai. And yeah, I'd just like to say, Neil, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. It's I know they say never meet your heroes, but I suppose we haven't met technically. It's over Zoom. So, but I do love the podcast. I really do enjoy it. Keep up the great work.
You're a star, mate. Well, thank you so much. I, for one, have just loved hearing more about how you're helping early stage founders rethink their go-to-market through a more operator-led crowdsourced model, and also how you're helping early stage startups rebuild their broken go-to-market strategies in just 7 days. But I think more than ever, it's that importance of collaboration and working together. And in a world of AI and screens, I think it's so important, your message here. But thank you for joining me today.
Thanks a million. Have a great day.
Richard's work with Springboard IQ, I think, captures the spirit of modern go-to-market thinking. It's quick, collaborative, and unmistakably human. And in a world where inboxes overflow with AI noise, he's proving that strategy isn't about shouting louder, but showing up smarter. And I love how he's reframed go-to-market from a lonely founder exercise and put it into a community sprint of sorts that's led by people still in the arena. So a big thank you to Richard for the conversation today and for his patience throughout, because as you may have noticed, my voice may sound a little bit different. I'm coughing, sneezing, spluttering throughout. And he was incredibly patient with me and a real gentleman. So when this cold has gone, I will be sharing a pint or two with him in Dublin, hopefully. So a big thank you to Richard. Even bigger thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in every day. You are the reason that I do this. But that is it for today. It's time for me to have a hot lemon and lie down in a dark room. But have no fear. I will be here, same time, same place tomorrow. See you then. Bye for now.